This is a review for the Chapter 8 test, which is really just 8.3 to 8.6. My advice to you would be to take notes throughout this review and use those on your test. So number 1 says to graph the equation, and we're going to do that by making a table. So we have this equation y equals negative 5x plus 2. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create this function table where we have our 3 columns, we have an x column, our function column, which is y equals negative 5x plus 2, and then we have our y value column. We're going to plug in let's just do three different points for x, and then we're going to solve for y. So I'm just going to do 0, 1, and 2. That will give me 3 points. For the first one, since x is 0, I'm just going to plug that into the equation and solve for y. So I'm going to plug that in, so we have negative 5 times 0 plus 2. Negative 5 times 0 is 0, plus 2 is 2. So my first ordered pair, since we write it as xy, is 0, 2. And then for the second one, I'm going to plug a 1 in for x and solve for y. So this becomes negative 5 times 1 plus 2. Negative 5 times 1 plus 2. Negative 5 times 1 is negative 5, plus 2 is negative 3. And then again, writing that as an ordered pair, we have 1, negative 3. And then for 2, I'm going to plug a 2 in for x, solve for y. So we have negative 5 times 2 plus 2. Negative 5 times 2 is negative 10, plus 2 is negative 8. I'm going to write out my ordered pair, so when x is 2, y is negative 8. Now I have my 3 ordered pairs, I can graph this. So I'm going to start by plotting 0, 2. So I start at 0 and I go up 2, plot my first point. And then we have 1, negative 3. So I'm going to go over 1, down 3, plot my point. And then 2, negative 8. Go over 2 and down 8. And now that I have my 3 points, I can connect them and make my line. Number 2 says graph the equation using intercepts. So we have 4x plus y equals 12. First thing we're going to do is we're going to find the x-intercept. We find the x-intercept by plugging a 0 in for y and solving for x. You will have to do this on the test. So instead of writing 4x plus y equals 12, I'm going to write 4x plus 0 equals 12. Again, I'm just plugging a 0 in for y. And now I'm going to solve this for x. So really the 0 doesn't mean anything. Sorry, 0. So I'm going to write 4x equals 12. And now to get x by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by 4. And that leaves me with x equals 3. Then I need to write that as an ordered pair. Remember, we write an ordered pair as x then y. We know our x value is 3, and we plugged in a 0 for y. So we write that as 3, 0. And there's my x-intercept. Then for my y-intercept, I'm going to do similar thing, but instead of plugging in a 0 for y, I'm going to plug in a 0 for x and solve for y. So I'm going to write 4 times 0 plus y equals 12. Well, 4 times 0 is 0, so that just goes away and we're left with y equals 12. Now to write that as an ordered pair, again we write it as x and then y. Well, we plugged in a 0 for x, and then our y was 12, so our ordered pair is 0, 12. I'm going to plot both these points. So for my x-intercept, we go over 3, up 0. For my y-intercept, we go over 0, up 12. And then we can connect these, and there is our graph of the equation. Number 3 says find the rate of change and explain its meaning. So we just practiced finding slope. Rate of change is similar, except our formula we use is change in y over change in x. We can choose any 2 points to use. I'm just going to stick with these first 2. And change in y. So I'm subtracting my 2 y values. I like to start with the larger one. So I'm going to do 518 minus 488. So again, just subtracting my 2 y values. Then for change in x, I'm going to do the same thing, but since I started with 518, I have to start with the number that corresponds to that, which would be 3. So I'm doing the same thing. I'm going to take 3 minus 1. And now I'm going to simplify that. 518 minus 488 gives me 30. And 3 minus 1 gives me 2. So I'm left with 30 over 2. Then from there, I need to add labels. So I have 30, which represents my y, which really, if we think about it, this is x and y. So we have 30 miles over 2, and our x is days, so 2 days. So we've simplified this, we've added our labels, now we need to change this to a unit rate. We want a 1 on the bottom. We need to figure out how many miles for 1 day. To do that, we have to divide both by the denominator. The denominator is 2, so I'm going to divide both of these by 2. And 30 divided by 2 gives me 15. So we have 15 miles over 1 day. And then it says explain its meaning. So the meaning would just be in 1 day, you travel 15 miles. And there's your answer. Number 4 says find the rate of change and determine if the 2 quantities are proportional, and then explain your answer. So to find the rate of change, again, we're going to use change in y over change in x. I have my 2 points here that it gives us. I'm going to start with the larger one, and I'm just going to subtract those 2 y values. So I have 120 minus 30. And I'm finding those because I know I have my x-axis and my y-axis, and I'm just picking those 2 y values of my 2 points. And then change in x, we always have to start with the one that corresponds with the starting y. So I'm starting with my 8, and I'm going to have 8 minus 2, because those are my 2 x values. And now I'm going to solve this. 120 minus 30 is going to give me 90. 8 minus 2 gives me 6. And now I have my fraction 90 over 6. Then I add my labels. So my y is amount of savings, so we have $90. And my x is weeks, so 6 weeks. We've added our labels. The last step with this is to change it to a unit rate. We do that by dividing by the denominator. So I'm going to divide both by 6, and I'm left with 1 week on the bottom, and then I take $90 divided by 6, and we get $15. Then if it asks you to explain what that means, it means that every week you save $15, and then it's also asking if it's proportional. Well, we know a graph is proportional if it goes through the origin 0, 0. In this case, yes, it is proportional because it goes through the origin. It goes through that point 0, 0. This one, number 5, says, is the graph proportional? Well, again, it's proportional if it goes through the origin. This graph does not go through the origin. So your answer would be, it is not proportional because it does not go through the origin. Number 6 says write an equation that represents a directly proportional relationship. Well, we know that a proportional relationship is written as y equals kx, where k is the constant. So this could be y equals 15x. It could be y equals 6x. Then an equation that is non-proportional has that addition or subtraction. So that could be y equals 15x plus 1. Y equals 6x minus 7. Those are non-proportional because they have that addition or subtraction. We want it just to be the multiplication of a constant and x. Number 7 says find the slope through the given points. Well, when we have 2 points, we use that formula y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And then I'm just going to label these as x1, y1, x2, y2 because it helps me to keep things organized. And then I'm going to plug them in. My y2 is negative 2, so I have negative 2 minus y1 is negative 2 again, so minus negative 2 over x2 is negative 8 minus, and then x1 is 8. So now I'm going to solve this. Negative 2 minus negative 2, those change to plus because it's a double negative. So we have 0 on the top, and then negative 8 minus 8 gives us negative 16. Since we have a 0 on the top, it is a 0 slope. If there's a 0 on the bottom, it is undefined. But in this case, 0's on top, 0 slope. Number 8 says find the slope of the line through the given points. Again, we have 2 points, so we're using that formula y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. I'm going to label my points as x1, y1, x2, y2. And then I'm just going to plug them in. So I am going to plug in negative 5 for y2, so I have negative 5 minus 2 over negative 8 minus negative 6. And then I just simplify. So negative 5 minus 2, we can add up, and that gives us negative 7 over negative 8 minus negative 6. We can change that to a plus because we're adding up, and we get negative 2. So now we have negative 7 over negative 2. Well, a negative over a negative is a positive, so this just turns into 7 over 2. We can leave it as an improper fraction, and there's our slope. The rise is 7, the run is 2. Number 9 says find the slope of the line. When we're given a graph, it's easiest to just do rise over run. You can plug those ordered pairs into our equation and you would still get the same answer, but this is a little bit quicker. We use rise over run when we have a graph. So you start with either one of the points. I'm going to start with this bottom one here. And our rise is how far up or down we have to go. So in this case, we have to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to get to that next point. So our rise is up 6, which is positive 6. Our run is how far left or right we have to go. In this case, we have to go left 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is negative 5 since we went to the left. And there's our slope, 6 over negative 5. You could also get the same answer by doing it the opposite way. If you start with the top point, your rise is how far up or down you have to go. So in this case, we're going down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's negative 6. And we're going to the right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Since we're going to the right, it's positive 5. Negative 6